and welcome to AWS On Air here live at the DC Summit. We've been talking with a lot of exciting people this whole summit, but I'm with one of my favorite people in the world, Chad. Chad, do you want to introduce yourself? I'm AM, by the way. You probably have seen my face a ton already. But Chad, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm good to see you. Also, one of my favorite people, so I'm glad that we get along.
That would have hurt. That would have hurt to hear I wasn't.
Yeah. So my name's Chad Lacey. I'm a global sales strategist here at AWS.
And we're with Cheyenne. Cheyenne, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and what you're here to talk about?
Sure thing. So I'm a senior manager for product management, and I lead a team of PMs. We work on a bunch of stuff on Amazon Aurora, including Aurora Serverless. So we recently launched Aurora Serverless V2 about a month back, and so here to talk about that. There's lots of exciting things that we have built into it, which would be very interesting for our public sector customers as well. So yeah.
Super cool stuff. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to kind of jump right in. Let's level set for everybody who's watching. If they may not be aware of Aurora Serverless, give us an idea of what that is. Talk about it a little bit.
Sure. So maybe we start with Aurora first, and then we can get to Aurora Serverless. So Aurora is a purpose-built database built for the cloud to offer the performance and reliability of commercial database with the price point and flexibility of open source databases. It is fully compatible with MySQL and Postgres. So if you have written any applications for MySQL and Postgres, you can just bring them in, and they will work on Aurora. With Aurora Serverless, what we do is we automatically adjust the capacity of the database to meet the demands of whatever the application needs. And with Serverless V2, we have added few new capabilities. First being, we are able to scale instantly to hundreds of thousands of transactions per second. And second one being, we are able to adjust the capacity in finer grained increments. And the third one being that we support the full breadth of Aurora's features. So we talk about read replicas, global database, performance insights, RDS proxy, all of that is supported.
Yeah, I was
That
going to
sounds
ask. You said V2, right?
Mhm.
What's the difference there? How is it compared to V1?
Yeah, so Aurora Serverless launched in 2018 with MySQL. We added Postgres in 2019, and that's what we call as V1 now. And that took off. Lots of customers, tens of thousands of customers use Aurora Serverless V1 for their infrequent and unpredictable workloads. Aurora Serverless scales capacity in 5 to 50 seconds and is able to double the capacity with each increment. So that was super exciting. At the same time, when we were talking to customers, they started telling us that they wanted to be able to use a serverless database and not worry about capacity management, even for their most demanding, most critical production workloads. So that's what gave us the motivation. We work backwards from customer requirements at Amazon. So we listened to our customers and we went on to build Aurora Serverless V2, which provides instant scalability, as I said, fine grained increments, and then full features. All features of Aurora are available on Aurora Serverless V2.
So can we dig into this fine grained increments? Because I love that description, but can we give a little bit more guidance
Yeah, I
or
caught that too.
clarity in what you're talking about there?
Let's get into it. So when we talk about capacity in Aurora Serverless, we measure it in Aurora capacity units. An Aurora capacity unit is 2 GB of memory, and it comes with its associated CPU and networking. With Aurora Serverless V2, we are able to adjust capacity in as little as half an ACU, which is equivalent of 1 GB of memory, versus doubling the capacity. If you look at our regular instances, EC2 instances, we go from, let's say, a 4 extra large to an 8 extra large to 16, so on and so forth. Versus here, we are able to adjust the capacity in much smaller increments.
So
So
obviously that's got some impact on not just the compute and storage, but for billing as well, correct?
Exactly. So now we are billing in much smaller increments as well, right? And we are able to adjust the capacity to match much more closely what your application needs. The other bit to talk about here is that your minimum capacity with Aurora Serverless V2 also has been reduced. So now with Aurora Serverless V2, we support a starting capacity of half an ACU. So your database could be as little as half an ACU, 1 GB. Yes.
Chad, you're always so practical with the billing questions. I love it. I love because I'm just like, what I just put my credit card in and it just starts charging, right? But no, you care, Chad, and I
I
like
do.
that cost optimization
There we
mindset.
go.
That's
Love it.
beautiful, and that's something I think a lot of people focus in on the scale up aspect of
Mhm.
serverless services as well, but most importantly, it also scales back down, right? Like that, and saves you money. That's one of my favorite parts about serverless.
And
But
that's a great point. Actually, I would like to add one more bit
yeah,
there, and
please.
that's with serverless V2, we have actually made scale downs also faster.
Oh,
We are
nice.
careful
Wow.
about it. We are careful about it, right? That we don't end up like scaling down too quickly. In that case, like you would have to again ramp up the database, do a bunch of IOs, and that's not efficient. So we do it carefully, but we have made the scale downs also faster.
That's great. And you hear the word serverless, you think automatically unpredictable workloads, typically, right? With a
Mhm.
lot of the architectural choices that people have made with serverless. But is that the only workload that you're really thinking about or should be thinking about as a customer for Aurora Serverless V2? Or there are other benefits?
I mean, infrequent, unpredictable workloads, those are like, spot on, feel like the natural fit for it, right? My claim is that serverless V2 actually is suitable for a much broader set of workloads. Hey, here's the reason why, right? Some of the things that don't come to mind immediately. One is, let's say, you talk about, multi-tenant software as a service application. So you could have these customers, sometimes thousands or tens of thousands of customers who have their own databases, and they all have variable workloads, right? Some could be using your software more, so therefore more of the database. Some could not be using as much of it. And with serverless, the key benefit there is that you don't have to worry about provisioning a fixed size database anymore. You don't have to worry about like what you are provisioning for whom. Depending on what each end user is using, the database will automatically adjust the capacity for those, tens of thousands of databases, so that your teams don't have to spend effort figuring out what's the right configuration for them. So that's one that comes out as a something that's not immediately top of mind, but something that could be very useful. The other one is, as we talked to customer, that came up again frequently, was when you have a distributed database. So there are situations where you reach the limits of what your database can do within one box. So in such situation, customers tend to, even with MySQL and Postgres, distribute them across multiple nodes. This is called as sharding. Now, the challenge with sharding a database is that how many shards do you create? If you create too many of them, it could be expensive, right? And if you create too few of them, then you have to reshard, which is super painful because every time you reshard, there's downtime involved. So with serverless, the flexibility that customers get is that, hey, you know what? Create as many shards as you need. And because serverless will adjust capacity according to what that shard needs, you don't have to worry about like over provisioning or under provisioning a shard. So if a shard starts getting used more, cool, Aurora Serverless will scale up. If a shard is cold, then it will scale down, right? So those are two use cases in addition to the typical use cases that we see for serverless. That could be very interesting to employ here.
Nice. I like that. Again, I always get excited when we're able to automate a lot of these infrastructure decisions that sometimes
Yeah.
are difficult to live through when you make the wrong one. Like you said, you have to reshard or take something down off of production for a while so that you can fix a problem in your original. I just love that we're enabling customers to handle
I
that a
feel
little more
I feel
automatic.
targeted. I feel targeted by you, Chad. Is that at me or am I just being sensitive?
I wasn't going to call you out personally,
Okay.
but since you volunteered, yeah.
Oh, man. Fine, fine. Yeah.
So we're here at the DC Summit. We're talking to a lot of public sector customers. What would
Mhm.
you want a public sector customer to know about Aurora Serverless V2?
So there are three pieces I would like to highlight. The first piece is just the cost efficiency of it. We talked about it, right? You no longer have to worry about managing your database capacity. Typically, you provision for peak, and that's expensive, right? Or you have to employ, a lot of specialized skills to be able to monitor your database capacity and adjust it, which is no fun either.
Hmm.
So when we think about public sector companies as well, there's a lot of cyclical things that happen. So you could be signing up for your healthcare or tax season. Suddenly there could be a huge spike, and like peaks that you don't know about. So in such situations, serverless could be a very cost-effective solution, as you don't have to provision for peaks or worry about capacity management anymore. Aurora will manage the capacity for you. So that's one bit. The second piece is compliance. So when we think about HIPAA, FedRAMP, SOC, PCI, like all the compliance regimes that Aurora is certified for, Aurora Serverless V2 being a feature of Aurora, all those compliance certifications apply as well. The third one being features that our public sector customers probably care about a lot, which is encryption, IAM authentication, AD and Kerberos authentication, and then disaster recovery situations, a global database. You want to set up cross region configurations. We support that as well with Aurora Serverless V2.
Yeah, that was going to be a question that I got to. Multi-region architectures are becoming, I'd say, more and more commonplace.
Yeah.
Especially as we spin up more regions as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so how difficult is it to turn on that global support on Aurora?
It's super simple and great point, right? So absolutely, we see a lot of customers now going towards having a multi-region architecture as well. And so just quickly talking about Aurora Global Database, it's a capability of Aurora wherein we allow customers to set up to 5 secondary regions where the replication lag is typically 1 second or less. And the recovery time, the amount of time it takes to fail over and make one of the secondary regions fully functional to take reads and writes, is less than 1 minute. So it's an immensely strong capability. All of the replication that happens in Aurora, without getting into too much detail, is handled in the storage layer. So there's no impact to the workload running in your primary region. Now, global database can be used for disaster recovery, one of the pieces that we talked about, and it can also be used for, let's say, scaling reads closer to end users.
Right.
With serverless, of course, it works on Aurora Global Database. And the key benefit, if you are considering disaster recovery situations, is that the secondary region, you could have a serverless, instances running in the secondary region, wherein if you're not doing anything there, which typically is the situation, secondary regions, you don't use them for it, serverless will scale down. And when the time comes, if you need to fail over, then serverless will automatically scale up. So that's a more cost-efficient configuration for disaster recovery.
That's nice. It's like even taking the pilot light type setup even
Mhm.
to like I think a simpler and cheaper way of, or less costly way of having your secondary regions set up. That's
E-
really
e-
cool.
Exactly. So with Aurora Serverless, for most customers who provision for peak, when compared to on-demand prices, we expect them to save up to 90% of their cost.
Wow,
That's amazing. So
very cool.
I just wanted to see, you've given a few examples, but just wanted to see if maybe there was an example or two customer use case, like, a SaaS customer or
Mhm.
a scale out database that could really take advantage of Aurora Serverless V2.
So maybe we can actually get into the console. I can go
Yeah,
through the
Let's do
flow
that.
for setting up a serverless database. It's super simple, and then I'll show you how global database works with serverless as well. Let's do that.
Awesome.
So I'm on the console, and head on over to RDS. Let's give it a few seconds while it spins. All right. All right, so then I'm going to head on over to the left-hand navigation, click on databases, and create a database. So when I go on to create a database, you will see a bunch of options. Aurora is a relational database, so it's offered under the relational database service. Going through the standard create template for now, as you see, all the engine options that we offer under RDS. For Aurora, there are two options. As I said, it's fully compatible with MySQL and Postgres. So there's a MySQL compatible edition and Postgres compatible edition. For now, I'm going to stick with it with MySQL. Now, when it comes to Aurora Serverless v2, it is available for the latest major versions of MySQL and Postgres. And the easiest way to figure out which version support Aurora Serverless is this nice little filter we have on the console. So if I toggle it, I get to see the versions that support Aurora
nice.
Serverless. And you can do the same thing with Postgres. So 302, we'll select that. Let's go with the production configuration for now. Database one, I'm not going to type in the name again, but let's get into the password.
It's Chad123, isn't it?
Man, you just gave my whole world my.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Chad. Yeah, I mean, Chad321. That's what I meant to say.
Chad will now have to sit down and spend the entire day resetting all his passwords. So the piece that I want to highlight here is that Aurora Serverless v2, selecting that is just as simple as selecting any other instance type. So if you see here, there are three options: are regular memory optimized and boostable, but serverless is what we are going to go with. It's obviously new, that's why we are highlighting that. These are the default configurations for capacity ranges. I'm not changing it for now, but you can go to as little as half an ACU as we indicate here, or on the higher end, you can go with 128 ACUs.
Oh, great. So you can cap it. So, you don't scale past a certain point. You can,
right.
predictably say, we're not going to go over this. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have a certain cost, you're working on a budget, then you can restrict how much it scales to. So it's in your control.
Nice.
Then coming to availability, multi-AZ, as I was talking about, Aurora storage itself is a multi-AZ configuration. We've maintained 6 copies across 3 availability zones. With the multi-AZ deployment here, we create a read replica in a separate AZ from the primary writer instance. So in case there's something that goes wrong with the primary instance or the AZ, Aurora automatically detects that and fails over to the read replica in 30 seconds or less. So I'm going to select that option because that's interesting. Rest of it is VPC configuration, all of these things. Of course, I'm not going to enable public access for now. You can set up all those things. And then, as you see here, IAM database authentication is also available. For now, I'm not going to select that in the interest of time. And then there's additional encryption options. So, for example, if you want to use a KMS key for encryption, you can provide your own key or select whatever is the default here. Again, interest of time, I'm going to move forward. And that's about it. It's as simple as that. And like any other Aurora database, you set up a Aurora serverless database the same way. So that's one bit. While this gets created, I'm going to actually navigate back to the databases and show the configuration. So key piece about Aurora Serverless is that, let's say you want to get started with Aurora Serverless v2. In such a situation, the minimal downtime path for that is that you select, in this case, as I say, provisioned cluster. So this is a cluster with existing, let's see what type of instances we have, R6G2 extra larges. And so the simplest thing to do there is just to go add a reader. And in this process, again, following the same steps that I showed before, you can add a serverless reader to this existing cluster. And this is a mixed mode configuration, right? This is what we call as a mixed mode configuration. Yeah, so if you're already using a provisioned database, simplest way, add a reader, test it out, and then failover. And as I said, failovers in Aurora typically take 30 seconds or less. And in fact, if you're using one of our smart drivers or RDS proxy, the failover time's less than 10 seconds. And with proxy, it will also preserve the connections from the application, so it's seamless. So yeah, that's about, so here, the serverless option for the reader. I'm not going to create for now. Again, I think we're running short on time, so I'm going to go on to describe global database. So global database, same way, right? You can have your primary region, with regular R6G, R5, whatever instance you choose, or you could have serverless instances there as well. The interesting bit here for disaster recovery situations, as I was saying, is that you can add a fully serverless. In this case, I have already added, but I'll just show quickly, fully serverless secondary region. So add a region, and then once it shows up, I'll show you the option to select the same process, select the db.serverless instance type. So let's go on to select. I'm running out of Mumbai, so I'll select something, let's say Sydney. I guess Sydney's too far. It's taking far too long.
There we go.
And there it is, right? So you select serverless. Same again, as I was saying, you can set the minimum capacity. I would recommend selecting something that is suitable for customers' workloads. So one thing to note again in Aurora Serverless V2 is that the scaling rate, how quickly we are able to scale and to what level we are able to scale, depends on the current instance size. So we support half an ACU, but configure the minimum based on the features you want to use and the scaling rate that is suitable for your workload. So adjust that based on that. So you can select half an ACU, and in this case, if you are not using the secondary region at all, it will scale down to the minimum capacity, whatever you're specifying. Interest of time, I'm going to skip through this for now, but again, same process, just add the region. So with that, let's also see how this functions in practice, isn't it? That would be interesting. So let's look through in practice how serverless plays out.
Okay.
So first thing I'm going to show is a bunch of metrics from a MySQL database. Connections, active connections, then the InnoDB buffer pool, which is the primary cache in a MySQL database, and the history length, which shows the rate of activity, change of activity. And purge is the process through which we actually reduce the history length and get rid of old versions of pages. So the thing to note here is that I'll run a command to continuously view these metrics as we run the demo. And with that, what we'll see is all these metrics will change. And processes like purge are also prioritized. So we are not only looking at foreground processes like connection and CPU and memory, but also background processes like purge and how much is needed to support those processes. On the console right now, there's a CloudWatch console. We see two lines. There's the orange line, which is showing the database's capacity. And the blue line is essentially a simulation of a flash sale. So of course, we love shopping for deals online. And in this situation, what we are seeing is we are running a simulated flash sale, Nike Jordans probably. And so suddenly, as soon as we start the sale, there's a spike, and you see the database capacity catches up. What we do with List V2 is catch up CPU first. So there's a little bit of burstiness initially. And once we figure out that the workload has stabilized, we also catch up the memory. So we fill in the buffers and anything else needed for it. As the workload continues to increase, our database also continues to increase in capacity.
Nice. Yeah, we are right up against time, Cheyenne, unfortunately.
All right.
So I think we should probably wrap up.
That's
and there it goes
we
back
scale down. Yes,
Yeah.
I'll just make it
Nice.
faster. And
There you go.
so yeah, it scales down, and then this is we see that the InnoDB history length has also come down. So serverless didn't just manage the resources for the foreground process, but also background processes.
Awesome.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's serverless V2 in action.
Well,
That's
Chad,
super
yeah, Cheyenne, thank you so much for this. Go check out Aurora V2 or Aurora Serverless V2 rather, and stick around for more great content here on AWS On Air at the DC Summit. We'll be right back.
Thanks, everyone.